type of business, then they will cease doing so. I mean,
Right.
It will be a simple closure, simple transaction. It's much more complicated here in Seneca County because of the ownership status.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons. That's my main reason. That said, so we've got the district attorney race shaping out with Jim Ritz and Christina Carl. Canandaigua City Supervisor for Wards 2 and 2 and 3. Canandaigua City Council races, Geneva City Supervisor. We've got 1, 2, 3 of those happening. Bristol Highway Superintendent is up. Canandaigua Town Supervisor, which I think has kind of quietly become the most interesting race.
Well, Sam Casella running again on the No Bull Party, which that was one of my... Ontario County has my 3 most interesting name awards. That's one of them.
It's fascinating. Then we've got East Bloomfield Town Council, East Bloomfield Highway Superintendent, Farmington Town Council, Geneva Town Justice, Geneva Highway Superintendent, Gorham Highway Superintendent, Naples Town Council, Phelps Highway, and Seneca Highway Superintendent seats also all up. What races stand out to you in Ontario County that you're really interested in?
Well, I mean, the one that I'm most concerned with is the city supervisor races, because Geneva has this interesting situation where Ontario County uses weighted voting on their Board of Supervisors. And in theory, if the city of Geneva's supervisors could actually agree on what is in Geneva's best interest and vote Geneva's interest as a block on some of these controversial issues, Geneva could actually get some better representation. This is what concerns me. There was a candidates' night that the League of Women Voters put on for these supervisor candidates, and I mean no disrespect to the League for this, because it's an important public service, and I'm glad that they do it. Their format is to take questions from the audience, and for the most part, I mean, I think they do screen the questions to make sure there's nothing inappropriate, but the questions are not necessarily sophisticated, not necessarily issues-based. They're kind of these softballs. What are Geneva's strengths? What do you bring to the table? What's your favorite color? No, they didn't ask what's your favorite color. But, I mean, in theory, it could have been something like that. Do you support the troops, right? I mean, this, and I'm thinking to myself, I am not seeing a lot of nuanced discussion about legislating. And there were some statements that were made that are actually like logistically false. Like people saying, here's what I will do, when actually like legally that's not allowed. Like that's not how county government works. And there was no mechanism to correct the record. I mean, unless you expected another candidate to do it, in which case then they might be violating the no, mentioning or disputing another candidate's words kind of provision. So it was very polite and nice and uplifting, I guess. Everybody got to talk about their strengths and what they love, and they love their families, and everybody loves everybody. But I left there thinking, man, if people aren't paying attention to what the county issues are and how county government really works, they could walk away from this not really having a good sense of who they should vote for and who they should avoid. So that was of concern to me. I don't know if there have been a lot of other candidates' nights that have around the
I'll just jump in right here, because you're talking about something that kind of really piques my interest.
Okay.
As a news guy, as someone who has moderated debates, actual debates, not candidates' nights, I feel like that's a really coy way to get candidates to show up to something. It gives them the insurance that, one, they will be there, but two, they probably won't have to answer anything too hard-hitting.
Right.
Because that's exactly what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. We have tried to organize multiple this year.
I know.
Multiple debates. None whatsoever have actually come together, not for any reason on our side, but literally because the candidates do not want to participate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you see here is and I totally agree that what the league is doing is a service and it's important, and thank God someone can get all these people this place together, but just call it something more tame. Call it like meet and greet. Call it a meet and greet.
Yeah.
Don't call it a forum. Don't call it a debate. Don't call it anything like that, because if you're not going to ask objectively down the middle hard questions
with follow-up,
that, you know what, at this point I'd just even take real questions, because what you were just describing is exactly what I think most candidates actually want to see. They don't want to be asked hard questions.
No,
that's the opposite. Especially,
I mean, look at in that
you're
this
running
is
a campaign.
Yeah.
Do you want to be hit with hard questions? No, of course not. You would much rather be hit with softballs, so you can just knock them out of the park. Do you support our troops? Of course, I support the troops.
If you don't want hard questions, you shouldn't be running. I mean, that has been my point. And Geneva has this tradition in local races. The past couple of races now, including my own, one party, not my party, has declined any debates for exactly that reason. That, well, what if things get out of hand? What if it's hostile? Jackie might say something, whatever. But the idea is, if you don't know the issues and you're not comfortable coming in and saying, here is my platform and here's why these are good solutions, and no, I don't agree with this, then what are you running for? Because that's what actual governance takes, the ability to articulate what your position is, why you think it's the right thing to do, and how you will respond or interact to people who disagree, and how you're open to revising your own opinion based on good new evidence. And one question at the candidates' night said, things are so contentious at the national level, and I think underlying that was that there's been some candidate stuff going out that, some candidates supported Trump and whatever. How is that going to influence their ability to get along with people? And there was all this discussion about, I listen to everybody, everything's going well. But while the candidates are speaking, some of the candidates that were talking about how respectful they would be were had side conversations and making little sneers and jabs at the people at the other end of the table speaking. And I thought, is anybody going to comment about the hypocrisy of saying one thing and behaving another way? No.
And here's the other side of that. So they take questions from the audience, or they take questions from readers, or I like that to a certain extent, but why put that pressure? Why put that amount of weight on voters when it seems to be pretty well established that a vast majority of the adult legal voting age public does not inform themselves about election, does not actually get involved in even voting in the first place? We see these horrid turnout numbers every single year, and it sounds really cynical of me to say this, but why would we hand that baton off to voters when they've already proven that they aren't readily engaged? Now, that said, good questions can get them engaged.
Right.
That's how you do it.
Yes. Show people what's at stake. Show people what the decisions are going to be, and let them see governing philosophy, command of the issues, ability to integrate data into their responses. But I'm not as cynical as you are. I don't necessarily think leaving it up to the audience means you won't get the hard-hitting questions. I think what ends up happening at these events is, if you look at the audience, who's there? Only people who are already supporting one candidate or another. So the questions are softballs because they're plants. And that bothers me because...
that's cynical.
Yeah,
that's way more cynical than what I said.
No, that's that's a commentary on reality, unfortunately. Okay. If they were only taking questions from undecided voters, that would be more interesting. But here's the thing that bothers me, and what I think a missing piece. If we could reform local government, I think it would start with this. The League of Women Voters does an excellent job studying issues. They have got this comprehensive voter's guide about all the proposition. What's at stake? Put it in layman's terms. What will this do? Who's opposed to it? Why? Who's for it and why? Nonpartisan. Excellent. There has to be something like that for local government, because when you have a candidates forum, somebody impartial needs to be able to say, okay, these are the top 3 issues that were discussed last year that are going to come up again. How do you reason through this? And then when somebody says, whoa, I've always felt that way, someone has to be willing to say, but actually the voting record shows you didn't vote with the Geneva supervisors on landfill issues on this and this and this. Why is that? Instead, people can say whatever they want. I mean, people could have promised to buy everybody there a puppy and nobody would have said anything. And I just, I left frustrated because this is part of the problem. Mm-hmm. And how do you get information out? Yeah. And one of the questions, was, well, how are you going to keep in contact with your constituents? How will you let people know what's going on? And almost everybody, not everybody, almost everybody gave the same answer. You've got my phone number. You've got my email address. You've got my Facebook page. One person said they don't use Facebook, but whatever. Like you can contact me whenever. I'm available to you 24/7. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, who's going to come and talk to you if they don't know what's going on? Yep. The way you keep in contact with people is your job is to get the information and push it out there in a way people can actually understand and react to. So in that race, in the supervisor's race, I understand the accusation that I'm partisan because the people that I'm supporting are the Democratic candidates. But for me, it is not about party. It is about, for the incumbents, it's about the actual work and effort and voting record and ability to stick, to make a promise and follow through, or if you can't, to explain why. Mm-hmm. And about just awareness of what's at stake. And I just didn't see that in the other candidates.
And I'll also say this. I just went on a rant about debates and this, that, and then forums. Prove me wrong. If you want to, if you're listening and you're a voter, yes, and you want to see your candidates actually debate issues against one another,
right?
Let them know, talk to them.
Stop voting for people who won't debate.
Stop voting for them, whatever you have to do.
Right.
And remember, we will literally host a debate between any candidates who are willing parties to take part. So, there's still
time. We could do that.
A week and a half, and it can be moderated by yours truly. It could be moderated by whoever. Whatever.
This is when people are actually paying attention. The last 2 weeks of the election is when people actually start to say, oh, wait, there's an election. I better find out who's running. This is the best time to have a debate.
Last year when we hosted the debate for the 54th Senate District, we had all 3 candidates in studio together talking about the issues. It was a polarizing race.
And it was a well-run debate. And everybody, I think, who participated appeared as though they left feeling that they had been heard.
Every single one of them were happy.
Yeah.
Every single candidate was happy leaving that night because they had a chance to actually show the people who would possibly be voting for them, or even undecided voters, how they differ from the people they're running against.
Yes.
That's what people want to know.
Yep.
At